Hello and welcome to the Toshogu Podcast, where we break down the latest news, breakthroughs, and ideas shaping the future of artificial intelligence.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are exploring a massive shift in the AI landscape. We are moving away from the novelty of standalone AI agents and, well, entering an era where enterprise agents are becoming dramatically cheaper to run, far more integrated into business operations, but also, and this is the scary part, much harder to secure. We will explore everything from plunging agent economics to autonomous models accidentally breaking into live networks, and why handing an AI a login might be the most dangerous and necessary thing companies are doing right now. Let's begin.
Yeah, it really is a transformative moment for the whole industry architecture, honestly. If you want to understand where this is actually heading inside the enterprise, you have to look past the flashy conversational stuff and focus strictly on the underlying economics.
Right? The money.
Exactly. The foundational cost of running these models is just plummeting at an unprecedented rate.
Yeah.
And that completely rewrites the paradigm of how a business can actually deploy them day to day.
I really want to break down those economics because, the pricing changes we're seeing right now are massive. Like, OpenAI has aggressively reduced the API pricing for their GPT 5.6 model.
Oh, aggressively is the word.
Yeah, so the Terra model is now down to $2 per million input tokens and $12 for output. But then you have the Luna model, which is sitting at an incredibly cheap 20 cents per million input tokens and just $1.20 for output.
It's wild.
It is. But before we analyze the strategy, let's demystify the jargon for a second for everyone listening. What does a million tokens actually mean in real-world practical terms? Like if I'm trying to build a business application.
That is the perfect place to start. So a token is essentially a piece of a word. A good rule of thumb is that one token is roughly 3/4 of an average English word.
Okay.
So a million tokens translates to roughly 750,000 words.
Wow. So we are talking about just massive amounts of text.
Massive. You were talking about feeding the AI several massive fantasy novels or, thousands upon thousands of pages of dense corporate legal documents. And the cost to process all that input is just 20 cents.
That's unbelievable.
It is. That price drop is the tipping point, really. Because until very recently, running a continuous autonomous AI agent was financially prohibitive.
Okay.
Every single time the agent evaluated a problem or read a new email or made a micro decision, you were paying a premium.
Right.
But at 20 cents per million tokens, you are no longer constrained by the cost of thinking.
That makes a lot of sense. And I saw they also rolled out this fast mode for the GPT 5.6 Soul model, citing a 20% reduction in serving costs.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. It feels like we are optimizing a massive restaurant kitchen. OpenAI is making the ingredients dramatically cheaper, right?
That's a good way to look at it.
But I was looking at what Google is doing, and they seem to have realized that the cost of the ingredients isn't the only way to save money. How are they cutting costs without just lowering the sticker price of the model itself?
Right. So they are tackling the infrastructure overhead through the Google Kubernetes engine, or GKE, specifically utilizing what they call the GKE agent sandbox.
Okay, what does that actually do?
Well, when you run thousands of AI agents, they aren't always actively doing something. Often, they're just waiting for an API response or waiting for a human to reply to an email. In traditional cloud architecture, you're still paying for the server space and the compute power while that agent just sits there waiting.
Which is incredibly inefficient.
It's a massive drain on resources. So Google solved this by utilizing warm pools and suspend and resume functions. A warm pool means the underlying environment is preloaded and ready to go.
So the agent doesn't need to boot up from scratch every time it gets a new task?
Exactly. And the suspend and resume function does exactly what it sounds like. It pauses the agent state completely.
So going back to the kitchen analogy, Google is basically saying, hey, you also don't need to pay the sous chef their full hourly wage to just stand around while the soup boils. You just put them on pause.
I put them in suspended animation, yes. And by pausing those idle agents, Google managed to increase the density of agents running on a single node from 61 all the way up to 274.
Wait, really? Over 200?
Yeah, 274 agents. They are reducing the infrastructure cost for intermittent agents by up to 75%.
That is a staggering optimization. But how does that actually change the day-to-day strategy for a business?
It creates a totally new strategy based entirely on routing architecture. You don't just buy one incredibly smart, expensive model to do everything anymore.
Right, because that's too expensive.
Exactly. You take these incredibly cheap models, like Luna, and you put them on background duty. They handle the high-volume, repetitive tasks. They route customer queries. They classify massive stacks of documents. You let them run constantly because they cost almost nothing, and they consume very little infrastructure when paused.
I see.
Then you reserve your expensive, premium models strictly for complex planning, handling weird exceptions, and making those final high-stakes decisions.
But, I mean, deploying thousands of cheap, paused, and resumed background agents creates a logistical nightmare, doesn't it? If you have an army of these things running around your corporate network, you can't just leave them floating out there.
No, absolutely not.
So how on earth do you keep track of them all? Because agents are now cheap enough to run in massive numbers, they clearly need a proper management system.
You need a highly structured operating system, a control plane. You simply cannot operate autonomous agents at that scale without governed infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what Google's Gemini Enterprise Agent platform is designed to do.
And that just became generally available, right?
It did. It includes major tools like an agent gateway, a registry, evaluation protocols, and observability tools to monitor what the agents are actually doing.
The feature in that platform that really caught my attention was the agent runtime. Google says it now supports workflows lasting up to 7 full days, and the agent maintains its context the entire time.
It's a huge step forward.
But how does an AI remember what it was doing on day 1 when it's still working on day 7? I thought these models just had a limited context window where they eventually kind of forget early instructions if a task goes on too long.
That is where the agent memory bank comes into play. It's a fundamental shift in how AI retains information over time. It isn't just a giant text prompt that gets longer and longer. The memory bank is a structured database.
Oh, okay.
As the agent works, it actively commits facts, summaries, and state changes to this bank. So on day 5, it doesn't need to reread every single action it took on day 1. It just queries its own structured memory.
Meaning an agent can spend 3 days analyzing a database, pause to wait for a human to reply to a Slack message, and then compile a comprehensive report on day 7.
Exactly, all while maintaining perfect continuity.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in and push back on this a little bit. Because we are seeing 2 wildly different philosophies emerging in the market right now.
We are.
Google wants you entirely embedded in their ecosystem with this massive 7-layer platform to manage an agent for a week, right? But then you look at AWS and they just launched advanced prompt optimization on Amazon Bedrock.
Yes, the Bedrock update.
And that allows a user to optimize and instantly migrate their prompts across up to 5 different models from different providers in a single workflow. Aren't these 2 strategies fundamentally at war? I mean, one is building the ultimate walled garden and the other is trying to destroy vendor lock-in.
What's fascinating here is that you've hit on the central tension of the enterprise AI market. AWS is absolutely betting that model migration should be a fluid, agnostic engineering process. They want you to hop between whichever provider is cheapest or fastest today.
Right, total flexibility.
But Google is betting on gravity.
Gravity? What do I mean by gravity?
The gravity of the ecosystem. Google understands that the real value is moving away from just having a model. The real value is having an integrated platform that manages identity, long-term context, and governance.
So once you're in, you stay in.
Right. If your custom agent has a week's worth of intricate memory woven into your corporate registry, you aren't going to suddenly migrate away just because a competitor's model is 10 cents cheaper.
But weaving an autonomous agent that deeply into your corporate registry brings up a terrifying vulnerability. If we have agents running autonomously for 7 days at a time, the immediate question becomes, what happens if they go off script? What keeps it from wandering into systems it shouldn't look at?
That is the exact scenario keeping security professionals awake at night right now. And we just got a very sobering look at reality from Anthropic.
What did they find?
They recently reviewed over 141,000 evaluation runs of their Claude models. And they discovered 3 distinct incidents where their models actually gained unauthorized access to real organizations on the live internet.
Wait, what? How does an AI model actually break out into a live corporate network? Does it write a hacking script?
No, it wasn't malicious at all. In these evaluation environments, the AI is given tools like an API that functions as a web browser. The models were prompted to believe they were in a safe simulation.
Yeah.
But a third-party cyber evaluation environment was misconfigured.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, it didn't block external IP addresses, so the AI didn't become a hacker. It simply used the web browser tool, navigated to a live corporate portal, and interacted with it. genuinely believing it was still operating in a simulation.
It essentially walked through an open door.
Exactly, because the network allowed it to.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it brings us back to that teenager in the car analogy. Telling an AI agent, do not look at the real internet in its system prompt, is basically like telling a teenager, don't take the car, but leaving the keys in the ignition, the garage door open, and a full tank of gas.
Oh, that is perfectly said.
It's just a polite request, not a security boundary.
It is a complete illusion of security. And NVIDIA's AI Red team just published a report confirming this exact vulnerability. They stated unequivocally that prompt-based security, or having LLMs acting as judges of safety, is just utterly useless.
So what did the NVIDIA Red team highlight as the primary failure modes? Is it just developers leaving network ports open?
It's a mix. They highlighted recurring failures like weak access control, unrestricted network egress, and developers leaving persistent plaintext secrets like API keys just lying around the environment. NVIDIA is aggressively pushing for deterministic controls.
What does deterministic actually mean in this context?
Deterministic means the security is enforced entirely outside the model. You must put the AI in a sandboxed execution environment with a default deny network policy. So the router itself physically drops any data trying to leave unless it is going to a strictly whitelisted destination.
Okay, that makes sense for network traffic, but IBM is tackling this from the data side with their new Guardium Exposure Manager, right?
Yes, they are.
They are arguing that you also need to track the exact lineage of sensitive data moving through an AI system. Why is data lineage so critical if the network is already locked down?
Because it isn't just about stopping a model from reaching the internet. It is about end-to-end visibility inside your own company. If an internal AI agent accesses a database, summarizes a confidential legal document, and drops that summary into a Slack channel, you need to be able to audit that entire flow.
Right, you need to know who saw what. But here's the paradox. If you put an AI in a perfect deterministic sandbox and its data access is heavily restricted, how does it actually get permission to do anything useful for a worker? If I want an agent to pull my team's financial projections, it has to somehow bypass that security to access the database. It has to borrow a human's identity.
And that is the core architectural challenge of this new era. Google is rolling out the infrastructure for this right now. They just introduced IAM group authentication for LLDB in preview.
IAM, meaning Identity and Access Management.
Correct. So this means agents can now pass a specific end user's identity and authorization scope directly through to the database. In the past, companies would just create a broad service account for an AI.
Like giving it a master key.
Exactly, which is a catastrophic security risk. Now it only sees what you see.
So what does this all mean for you and me? If an agent is borrowing my IAM identity to access a database, and it makes a catastrophic error like deleting a table, whose fault is it? Me, the AI, or the platform?
That is the multi-million-dollar liability question. And it's why the era of shared super agent credentials is over. An agent should never have more access than the human requesting the action. If it borrows your identity, it acts with your permissions.
And the system logs that.
Precisely. Furthermore, as the EU AI Act takes hold, proving this chain of custody is becoming mandatory. Regulators want data lineage, human oversight, and absolute content transparency.
Speaking of regulators, OpenAI is pushing hard into regulatory alignment right now, endorsing the EU General Purpose AI Code of Practice. And they are focusing heavily on things like system documentation, Symphony watermarking, and C2PA content credentials to prove AI provenance.
Yeah, think of C2PA like a digital wax seal on a document. It provides cryptographic proof of exactly which AI model touched it and on whose behalf it was acting.
Okay, so we've covered the tech, the platforms, the security, and the regulations. But none of this matters if the human workforce rejects the tools or uses them incorrectly, because tool access alone does not equal adoption.
It absolutely does not. The human element is the most unpredictable variable here. But we do have a massive success story from Univet. They are a European mid-market insurer.
Oh, I saw this case study.
They hit a 97% activation rate of ChatGPT enterprise licenses, with 85% weekly active usage.
97% activation is completely unheard of in enterprise software. How did they do it?
They did it by empowering the workforce. Employees built roughly 1,500 custom GPTs tailored to their specific daily tasks.
That's incredible.
It really is. They use these tools to reduce pet insurance claim prep from hours down to just minutes. But the crucial detail is that the humans kept final accountability for every claim.
We saw a similar rapid adoption in retail too, right? The Avataran and Yamada Denki multilingual voice shopping agent. That thing engaged 30,000 shoppers in just 2 weeks with a 92% positive response rate.
When it solves a real problem, humans adapt quickly. But we have to balance those massive successes against the warning signs. Salesforce just reported some research that executives need to pay attention to.
Right. They reported that while 95% of field service organizations use AI and 57% report higher revenue per job, the lack of proper employee training is now the leading cause of mobile worker turnover.
It reveals a huge flaw. Many executives treat AI like a simple software installation. They just hand out iPads and expect the AI to do the work.
Yeah. It feels like businesses are just throwing software licenses at employees and expecting magic. But Unive succeeded because they empowered employees to build 1,500 of their own specific tools. If you don't redesign the workflow, aren't you just frustrating your workers?
You are actively degrading their experience. That is why the winning formula is the governed AI operating model, rather than just a software installation. It requires leadership alignment, total workflow redesign, and measurable business outcomes. You have to train the worker on how to collaborate with the agent.
So you have to redesign the human side before you unleash the agents.
Precisely. And, we spent this whole time talking about how humans govern agents, but there is one final thought I want to leave everyone with.
Yeah.
As agents become cheaper, highly secure, and intrinsically tied to our personal identities, we have to wonder, how long until these agents start autonomously negotiating permissions and access rights with other agents? The next frontier isn't human to AI security, it's AI to AI diplomacy.
That's all for today's episode of the Toshogu Podcast. If you enjoyed it, like this episode, subscribe, and join us next time for the latest in AI. Until then, keep building what outlives you.